I found the strength of my ancestors deep down in my African core. I used to be frightened. I'm not afraid no more. The Father blessed me with the heart of a lion and a warrior soul. So no weapon that form against I shall not prevail. And no man that rise against I, that war they shall never win. 'Cause I will conquer, oh I will conquer, yes I will conquer them. Come on, let's conquer, oh I will conquer, rise up and conquer them. Tell them no retreat, no surrender. I shall fight till the end of days. I was born as a Makai warrior, and the Almighty God my blade. Fire burn all Satan carrier. Father loose all shackles and chain. This morning first thing as I wake up, King David turns Sam to the brain. Don't let your courage go down, keep it up. And if your heart rip up and stitch it up, don't let your faith them fall, pick it up. When my cup was empty, God fill it up. Don't take the devil contract, rip it up. And if your bad mind people to go meet it up, pass me the Congo drum and let me beat it up. God on my side, me no give it. So no weapon that form against I shall not prevail. And no man that rise against I, that war they shall never win. 'Cause I will conquer, oh I will conquer, yes I will conquer them. Come on, let's conquer, oh I will conquer, rise up and conquer them. Thank you, Father. I want to say thank you, Lord. You're everything, Father. Thank you. Father, you alone shall guide me. No man shall lead my path. In the wind I hear your quiet whispers, and you heal my broken heart. Even some of my friends turn enemies, and they pray for right to feel. And remember you gave us your only begotten son, but we gave him the wound of lies. Send down your warriors with the hello. They carry down to the end of days. No matter how the devil try trick me, unto you my soul I will give. Father, I know this time is coming. I can see the high tide raise. Without you there is no other. Could it be that we the no weapon that form against I shall not prevail. And no man that rise against I, that war they shall never win. 'Cause I will conquer, oh I will conquer, yes I will conquer them. Come on, let's conquer, oh I will conquer, rise up and conquer them. I am a man, I am a champion, I am a warrior. So who are you to tell me that I cannot make? Who are you to tell me that I am not the greatest thing that God ever created?
Good morning, Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique. You're listening to Hard Talk Grenada. A very special good morning to those of you joining us on the various radio stations, 97.5 CitysoundFM, 89.5 CRFM, 91.9 and 91.5 RealFM Radio, 92.9 Cicero Radio broadcasting from Hillsborough, Carriacou, and of course 94.9 WeiVybz Radio out there in Brooklyn, New York. A very special good morning to those of you joining us on the live video, whether it's on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, wherever you may be this morning. A very special good morning to you. It is a beautiful, 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 beautiful Thursday morning. The sun is out. I'm not smiling as much as I was yesterday, but I still feel as good. And of course, sitting next to me in studio, I have none other than Mr. Roland Bola, my co-host. Good morning, Mr. Bola.
Good morning to you, Miss Duncan. I noticed that you are stuttering a little bit this morning, and I don't know the reason for that.
Maybe my mind is preoccupied.
Well, I wouldn't know. I'm not in your mind. At least I can only judge from your facial expression. Good morning to the listening public. I really do hope that all of you who have joined us this morning is having a wonderful morning. It is indeed a beautiful Thursday. The sun is out in its glory. The weather looks good, the general conditions. I know it's still early in the morning, but the sun was not that hot and blistering as yet.
Yeah.
I've been in St. George's really early. I've been able to make it to Grandance and run a couple of errands and be back already. So, it has the making for a wonderful day today. I hope that most of you are enjoying good health, that you have praised the Lord for allowing you to see another of His majestic days, His creation, and that you are prepared mentally, physically, and otherwise to get the best out of today and to give the best that you can to humanity and to your country.
Absolutely. And of course, we promised the people that we'd be talking about something new this morning. And of course, there's an issue that we do want to bring up. And we will open the lines early so people can join in on the conversation. But of course, it's important for us to start this particular conversation, especially early into the year, and understanding what is going on. But before we get into it, Mr. Bola, I just want to make quick mention of two recent developments as it relates to our neighboring island of St. Vincent, who currently is battling with the possibility of community spread. Now, I am not an epidemiologist or anything like that. I'm not in the health field, so I cannot declare that it is. Some people may say, well, they investigating cases and they don't know where it come from and so on, so it's community spread. I cannot say that because I have not been given the authority to confirm.
You just said what you cannot say. I cannot
confirm that.
Okay.
Because I have not been given the authority to confirm it. But they are struggling at this time to grasp a hold of COVID-19. I mean, we've had our fair share of that difficult time.
Are they struggling or are they dealing with it?
Dealing with it.
Right.
It's a difficult time. We always attribute struggle and difficulty in the same bracket.
But they send different connotation. If we say that they're dealing with a challenging or a difficult situation, I think it sounds a little different to when we say they are struggling. Mm-hmm. Because, when we say they're struggling, it gives the connotation that, the head is almost underwater. And I don't know if that is the situation. I know the situation is bad because wherever you have COVID, whether you have 1 case or 100 cases, it's bad because it can spiral out of control very quickly, very easily if you don't, and that's why again commendation and kudos have to go to our people here in Grenada, both those who have been the policy makers, from the government, Ministry of Health standpoint, and of course the actors like all of the medical people, whether they're nurses, doctors, laboratory technicians, whoever they were that has been working along the we have the COVID committee, which is made up of a number of other people outside, separate and apart from medical people, that gives advice and that continues to look at the trends around the world and advise government as to what moves they must make and when they should make it. Kudos to them because they have been doing a tremendously good job. Because while we talk about St. Vincent, and if you can pull up the WHO schedule of countries and where they are. We must not forget, just down south from us is Trinidad and Tobago. And they are not very far away from St. Vincent as well. And they too have a very, very bad situation and has been dealing with it for quite a while. I mean, Trinidad, in the case of Trinidad, they're heading closer to the 10,000 mark now. I don't think they are there yet, but they're getting closer to there. Likewise, Barbados. Barbados is a little bit lower in terms of numbers than Trinidad, but they too are having a struggle. So these are regional countries. They are trying to put a handle. They're working hard. I guess they're doing the best they can with the present situation. But we talk about it because we need to take cognizance of it. As we have said before, our neighbor's house, when it's on fire, we need to continue throwing water. Well, we need to assist them because we want to get the fire out. We need to wet ours so that the heat that comes from the flames doesn't cause our own house to catch a fire. In short, we have had our share, but it is not over yet. The game is not over. This whole COVID issue is not over. Only recently I was hearing outside of the new strain found in England or in Europe, there seem to be another or two other strains that are acting a little differently. So, we just cannot rest on our laurels. We just cannot take for granted that we have done well so far. So, Grenada is immune. Absolutely not. There's always the possibility that the moment we drop our guards, the moment we leave the gate open to COVID, it can come in fast, come in hard, and give us a really, really, really tough blow. So it's just a matter of encouraging our people, letting good sense prevail. Stop believing all of the ridiculous kind of statements that you see on social media, and let us do what the protocol asks us to do. Let us continue to protect ourselves, protect our neighbors, protect our families, protect our country in the best possible way.
Because I often ask the question, we may feel a certain way about what the protocols are, or we may feel about a certain way about the administration in power now giving the protocols, or we may have these conspiracy theories about where the virus came from or what it is meant to do. But with all of that, what stands true and what remains the same is the fact that the virus is spreading and that the virus is killing people, and that in order for us to survive this virus, there are certain measures that we have to take to do that. These things remain the same. Even though the situation is fluid, even though the information may change, even though the virus itself may have mutations, whatever it may be, what remains true and what remains the same is the fact that we have to physical distance, we have to wear our mask, we have to follow the protocols, and people are dying as a result of this. These are the things that remain true. So regardless of if we feel like we don't want to listen to what these people have to say, or we feel that there's some hidden agenda behind it, it doesn't take away your belief in that or non-belief in that, does not take away from the fact that this virus, COVID-19, is killing people and that it is real. Where it came from is irrelevant at this time. What we need to do is stop it from where it's trying to go. And in order to do that, we have to follow the protocols that have been put in place.
Certainly. But were you able, if we could just quickly give the numbers?
We can.
The statistics.
So Trinidad and Tobago, as we know, our neighbors right south of us, they are actually from, and these numbers would go from when we started in March, or maybe a little before March, to currently, as of this morning, and they are currently at 7,305 cases with 285 that are active. Right?
285 active
cases. So they are doing a lot better than they were a couple months ago, but the numbers are still high. We have Barbados.
How many deaths Trinidad had so far?
Trinidad has had a total of, and I'm trying to, let's see here, 129.
129
people have died as a result of COVID-19. We have Barbados, and they are currently at 1,000, as you said, 1,007 cases, which still at 7 deaths, but there are 535 active cases, right? And of course, this is the number that you have to look at, those that are active. It means that people that are currently infected with the virus. And then we have St. Lucia at 502 with 177 active cases, 6 deaths. St. Vincent is currently at 284, with 174 of those cases being active cases. Now, one thing we do have to note, they've not had any deaths from the virus, and of course that's great. Recently, I think as of last night, they recorded 49 new cases. So their cases are soaring. They are finding cases of people who have not traveled, people who are not associated with the cluster, which of course, gives the impression that there is community spread, because there is no known contact for these individuals. So we're still watching this, and they are also battling with the volcano as well. So they have a lot going on over there.
And dengue, you remember?
And dengue as well.
So steady attack. So it's really hard on the Vincent people, and we do hope and pray that something will soon happen to bring some sort of relief. Again, if the Soufriere volcano can quiet down and take away the threat and the worrying of minds as to whether or not it's going to Europe, that will help in some small way. Not that it will prevent COVID from spreading, but it would be one less hazard that they would have to worry about. I have not had a recent update on the dengue. I hope that they're sort of having it under control, and then to definitely do what is necessary to be done to bring the COVID situation under control.
And persons may ask the question, well, why are you using these other countries and comparing them? The comparison is not so much the fact that they have COVID, or not so much the fact of numbers of how many cases they have, but it just goes to show that each of these islands, while they have seen their fair share of surges recently, it just goes to show that we don't know when or how the virus is going to come to our islands, because each of these countries can attest to the fact that they've had different occurrences in which the virus spread. There's situations in which they found clusters, or they found community spread, or whatever it may be, was different. And I'm just saying that to say that we tend to believe that there is a one fixed solution for COVID-19, that if we just close our borders and we just keep everyone out, that is going to solve the problem. But it will not. It will not solve the problem. We have to survive. We have to, and we need the outside world. We need the international world in order to survive. We cannot survive on just the resources we have here. It is absolutely impossible. No country in the world could lock out the rest of the world and survive, at least not for long. So we have to take that into consideration. So while it may seem plausible, while when you say it, it sounds good, when you look at it, when you put all the pieces together, when you actually sit and think about it, it is an impossible feat. And it's a warning sign for our individual neighbors. It's also a warning sign for our brothers and sisters in Carriacou and PT Martinique to
for
be
us here
vigilant. And Grenada, to be vigilant. Be vigilant. Be on your guard. Be your brother's keepers. And just follow the protocols.
And encourage each other to do so as well.
And encourage each other to do so. And follow the protocols. I mean, we cannot say it enough. I know every time one of the most said words, I think, for 2020 was protocol. Everything was protocol.
It may well be for 2021 as well.
It might be for 2021 as well. But it is important for us to do so. And I don't think we have yet grasped the gravity of the situation, because our governments in the region have been handling COVID fairly okay. They've been doing a marvelous job at dealing with whatever challenges come with COVID-19. And there will be there are challenges, there have been challenges, and there will continue to be challenges, because
we will have in Grenada pretty soon.
Like we will have.
And I think that's what we want to kind of zero in this morning on. Outside of COVID,
I know you're ready to get into it.
Well, I mean, we have to at some point in time, but it's not so much about already. But I know the issue of COVID is so relevant
Yeah.
And still is a subject matter that don't matter. It doesn't matter how many times you speak about it. Every time you get the opportunity to, it appears like it is something fresh, something new. Because this virus or this pandemic it just keep evolving. It's like every day you hear something new. There's something different. There's either a new strain. There's some new methodology that you're being told about that you can try, and it's just evolving. It's very innovative. So we can't say too much. We can never say enough. We just need to constantly remind ourselves, remind the people who are listening to us that COVID is still very, very fluid. And despite the fact that we had a recent cluster in Grenada and we seem now to have it kind of on bolt and nuts, meaning the cluster that we were dealing with, that does not give us the authority and right to say that it is all over for Grenada.
Yeah.
And so when we speak about our neighboring islands, we're just trying to let people know, look at what is happening there. So there is no shortage of possibility that if we get too careless, we may find ourselves in a very similar situation like our neighbors are. Not that we are happy. I mean, I don't know if there's anybody who should be happy. About another person or another country suffering at the hands of COVID-19.
I mean, it's a difficult situation, and it brings into light a few things that have happened, a few things that will. That we should expect, really, because we know what COVID-19 has done to the world's economy, not just Grenada's economy, not just the region's economy, but the world is grappling to keep their economies afloat, because we have absolutely no idea. We can't say that COVID-19 is going to be around for another 6 months or another year or another 2 years. So we'll just tailor this to suit for the next 2 years and ride the waves. We cannot say that. So we need to start making, as a government, prudent decisions to help manage our economies in ways that it can outlast COVID. And one of the recent things that has arisen from this is the deferral of salary increases for public servants.
Well, is it a deferral or a request?
A request to defer.
For the deferral of an increase.
I know that government has requested it. They are at the negotiating table currently, trying to come to terms with what is the best solution for workers. And I want to just point out very quickly that before we jump into a fight that we feel emotional about, because it is something that is usually a very emotional occurrence when you start negotiating for what the increases should be and so on. We go through the ringer with these things. So we know that once you start talking about salaries and wages, it is something that people start taking very personally. And I want us to just put into the limelight what this could possibly mean for us as a people. We have so many things happening at this current point, this juncture, where our economy has been affected. Trade has been affected, import-export has been affected, grants has been affected.
Revenue collection in general.
Has been affected. And we have to understand and appreciate the fact that even throughout this entire situation, public servants have received their full salaries and received it on time.
But government employees all over.
Well, government employees all over, yes. And you're absolutely correct.
Inclusive of pensioners.
Inclusive of pensioners. Inclusive of persons who received several benefits, such as the seed programs and so on. In some cases, earlier than its expected time. And this is not us saying that, well, because of that, you should give them leeway. It is us saying that because of prudent management of the economy, government is still able to continue doing this without having to offer their public servants bonds, or without having to retrench any workers, or without having to tell workers, okay, well, hold on for a couple weeks. Let's see how we could, move some things around and so on. And I've heard people made statements concerning, they find $68 million to pay Grenada, so they should be WRB. So they should be able to pay workers. And sometimes, I know it's a little ignorance, sir. It's not knowing.
Well, sometimes it's ignorance, but sometimes, again, too, it is emotional.
It is emotional.
Because I think, and I listen to some of the people who sometimes make those statements and make those comparisons. Mm-hmm. And I believe there are people who ought to know better. Yeah. I believe there are people who understand the way governmental systems and government finances operate. Mm-hmm. But sometimes to drive home a point and to get to where they want to be and to sound convincing, they make it anyway, even knowing that what they're doing is not necessarily the correct thing. Yes? Mm-hmm. So when you make a comparison with government finding the money to pay WRB for the shares, but they're saying they can't pay the public servants the increase at this time.
Mm-hmm. And they're not saying that they're not going to pay it at all, because in case people don't understand what a deferral means, it means move to a later date. It doesn't mean we are not going to pay them. We have gone back on our agreement and they will not get it at all. They will get it, but at a later date. So let's say things go back to normal in January of next year. Then they would, of course, have to, not next year, the next 3 years. Then they would have to negotiate for...
maybe 3 years.
I'm just stretching it,
But that's a long stretch.
Okay, next year. Let's say next year. Whatever the increase was supposed to be for this year will be given to them in addition to what they're supposed to get for January of next year. So I want people to understand the deferral doesn't mean we're not going to give them the money or they're not going to get it at all, or government is using COVID as a shield to not pay them what they have promised. A deferral simply means we are understanding the situation. We are asking that you collect on our promise at a later date, basically.
Yeah.
But I want you, Mr. Bowler, because you have more, of course, institutional knowledge on how the capital and recurrent side of the of our budget works, to explain to our people why it is that we are not able to move money around in our recurrent as we are able to do on our capital side.
Well, a budget has, in terms of its expenditure, has two sides. Yes? In terms of revenue generation, it's one side, but from different pots. So you generate revenue from collection of taxes, payment of fees and license to government, as well as government can get grants and get loans. That is all revenue.
Right.
The major part of your revenue, and that's why sometimes when people speak of a balanced budget, meaning that your budget, what you're hoping to spend, both on your current, recurrent, and your capital side, you are collecting sufficient to make all of these payments and sometimes have an excess. Even if you don't have an excess, but if you can show where your money is coming from, or how you're going to raise the money for all of the things that you're promising to spend. Because we have to remember that a budget does not represent cash in hand, or money in the bank. What it represents is what you believe, and you come up with that belief, you come up with a figure based on a number of things. Based on trends of previous years, what you have been able to collect, based on your economic growth, based on the projection for growth as well. Because if you're projecting that you will grow by a certain amount, it means that you are expecting to collect a certain amount. It's like any ordinary business. If you did $1 million in sales last year, but you look at the trend, you do assessments, and you believe that this year sales will grow by 20% or so, it means that your revenue stream will also grow because you will be selling more, you will be turning over more goods and services and things like that. So government makes those predictions and they say, look, we're going to collect X amount here, we're going to collect X amount there. We have had promise based on negotiations from this institution or this government that they're going to give us a grant, but we also know that there is a possibility of getting a loan of 10 million, 5 million, whatever, from this source or that source, and all of that makes up your revenue intake. And so ministry by ministry, vote by vote, item by item, you say this is what we can spend. So how much we're going to spend on roads? We spent 1 million last year. This year we can spend 2. And why can we spend 2? Because we are expecting to collect more revenue. Because after we take out our current expenditure or recurrent, meaning that it reoccurs month after month after month, we are expected to have so much. That's why they talk about surplus on your recurrent, which then gives you room to fund your capital budget. And I mean, I don't want to get very technical. I'm trying to be as very basic as possible. So there are 2 sides for expenditure, as we say, the recurrent. Now, recurrent expenditure means the normal things you will do month to month. Salary, wages, pension, they make up the major part of your recurrent expenditure. Okay, these are things based on the number of employees you have, or the number of people you pay, the number of pensioners, at what rate. All of that has to be calculated and to know this is what you spend. There are some other recurrent expenditures, but they are, so for example, stationery. Let's use that as an example. It's a recurrent expenditure. It is something that you have to get from time to time because you need to use paper and toiletries and things like that. But sometimes it varies in terms of the amount that you use on a month-to-month basis. Depends on the amount of printing, and we know that a lot of governments, including this one here, is talking about going green, using less and less paper to print, and trying to use the services that are available through the internet and the platforms that make the transfer of information easier without having to print too many things. And so you may see cuts, you may see variances in terms of the amount you spend this year as compared to last year. And so, but some of these things they reoccur, so you put them under recurrent expenditure. What you have in terms of growth, you don't see a lot of economic growth coming from recurrent expenditure, but you may see growth in the amount because you have salary increases that come, you have certain items that you need to purchase and repurchase, going up the prices because of international circumstances, because of manufacturing costs, transportation costs. All of those things can cause those things to go. But in terms of economic growth, not from the recurrent side. Your economic growth, the real thing comes from your capital side of expenditure. Right. Yes? So, building of a piece of road, a bridge, a building, that's capital. Right. Yeah? These are the places where employment are being created. We're doing of a playing field. That's a capital expenditure because you don't do it to the same field every year, every month, every term, every quarter. Yes? Yeah. You put out some money, you do something massive. Now there is maintenance. And maintenance may be considered as a recurrent. But in terms of the project itself, it's not a continued thing month by month by month. There's a period under which you do it, there's a certain expenditure, and then that's over. Right? And that is where you get the action, really. That is what gets the economy moving, because if you have to do 3 miles of road, $3 million, and I'm just using wild figures. Don't quote me to say this is what it costs to build a mile of road. I'm just showing out those figures. You take 6 months to do it, and then that is finished. So that capital expenditure is done. But how does it benefit your economy? You know, people will get jobs, albeit short term, but 60 guys may work. These 60 guys working, getting paid, plus the hardware, the trucks, the gravel and concrete pit, the importers of sand, the importers of cement, because you need cement, you need sand, you need gravel, you need stone, you need trucks to transport them, so transportation costs will grow. And that is why when the government spoke about increasing the capital budget this year, and they spoke about the 4 or 5 areas where they will see the growth, they had construction, because they know what is coming on the capital side of the budget is going to create employment.
Yeah.
They had wholesale and retail. Why? Because if you are building new roads, you are building new bridges, you are doing government building, you are doing schools, there will be a need for more building materials. So you have nails, you have lumber, you have cement, you have sand. So more of that will be imported. Yes, so you'll see an increase there. There's an increase in you see transportation as one of the areas where, because more trucks and more buses will be busier, because you would have workers moving from one point to the next. And things like that. So everything is linked one with another. It was not just abstract. It's not dipping your hand in a hat and whatever come up, you say that's the way, that's the place to go. You have agriculture. Why? Because if more people are working, more people are moving, there's be more need for food.
Yeah, more production.
Right? More production. And these are the things now that will tell government, because we expect 20% increase in our in importation of agricultural building materials, and because people now have disposable income and they're going to spend, so the housewife who did not have a job last year, or a husband who is into construction was laid off because of COVID, now that there's a possibility that he will get work, she will visit the supermarket more, so that supermarket will have to stock more.
Right.
You understand? Government in turn expects to collect more revenue at the port of entry, because that is where, when the goods are imported, you have to pay duty and taxes and VAT and customs service charge and so to get it cleared. Transport has to move it from the docks to the warehouse, from the warehouse to the shopkeeper or the retailer, from the retailer to your home. So all of those things, you see the link that is taking place. Now, I'm saying all that to explain to people that it is not by magic government comes up with the idea. The economists and accountants. And when we say government, sometimes people think, well, it's the ministers and them sit down, Gregory Bowen, Oliver, Kit Mitchell, and Peter David, and them sit down and just put some things to come and fool you. No. These are numbers that are crunched. You have people in what you call the budget team. You have the economic development team. You have the debt reduction strategic team. They all sit and crunch their numbers and look back at what has happened last year, look at the economic focus for this year, look at what is happening in Trinidad, look at what is happening in the US, look at what is happening in China. Because the trends these first world metropolitan states and cities take, based on the growth and the leverage that they're making, it will determine also what happens to us in Grenada. Because also, remember, remittances play a great role in our people's ability to spend. Now, if the economic growth rate in the US, in Canada, in England is falling and falling rapidly, we cannot adjust ours to grow rapidly, because a lot of the remittances, a lot of family members, sons and daughters and uncles and nephews and so, that send on a monthly, a weekly, a fortnightly basis here, if they are going to be unemployed and they're going to fall out of a job, they won't be able to support our people. Right? So there's a lot that has to be taken into account when you crunch those numbers and come up. Right? And don't get into the macroeconomic factors and all those things. These are different. We don't want to go there. We just came in at the top saying some are the very basic things that would happen. So, what has to be spent in the budget for recurrent is being budgeted, and that's where it stays. Now, you cannot transfer a funding from a capital project automatically to and make it into a recurrent.
And just to pause there, recurrent means continuous. It happens every
salaries and wages
month. So if we were to take something from the capital side, let's say we got a grant to build a road.
Right.
That is something that is a one-off something. It is not something that is recurrent. So whether it might be able to say, let's say we move it and we put it in January and we're able to meet the needs of January, that is not something that is recurrent. So February is going to come and we're going to have the exact same problem
and
that we had in January.
But more than that, and that's a good explanation, because it's a one-off. You get it to do that project and then it's done. It's not reoccurring. You don't do the project over and over and over. You may get others to do another project, but it's one-off. So if you move it and say, well, we take it out, we were supposed to build a mile of road in such and such place, but we are short on money for salary, so let's not build the road and let's put it there. When the following month comes, you no longer have that money, because that money was to do that project. Yeah. You spend it on salary and wages for January, February you come back and you have the same issue because you still don't have it.
And then you have another compounding issue. The persons that were supposed to be employed to complete that capital project now has no revenue.
Have no revenue. So all of what I explained before, it comes back to zero because they have no revenue, they have no work. The buses traveling in that area is going to go dead because the people can't travel. The retailers don't get sale because the people in that area who should have been working on that road and raising a little money, or as we say, albeit temporary, don't have that again. But there's another factor that we have to take into consideration. Most times, even when you take a loan for a capital project, grants, they will tell you specifically why we're giving you a grant. This is a grant of $1 million to do X, to do Y, to do Z. And even when you take a loan, you go to one of the developmental agencies, you go to the World Bank, to the Caribbean Development Bank. It has to be project and time specific.
Right.
CDB don't just give you $5 million and say, okay, we think things are bad in Grenada. Here's $5 million as a loan or as a grant, and you do it. Now, there are some grants from time to time that you get that is referred to as budgetary support. Now, that is not often. If you get it once or twice a year, from some financial institution like the IMF or the World Bank may give you that based on your ability to manage your economy, and they say, well, we give you a $5 million as budgetary support. Now, it means that you can spend it where you want if you get it as budgetary support. But generally, loans and grants are given, they are project specific, they are time specific. Because there are times when you get a grant, they say, look, we give you a grant of $1 million for that project. And that project must be completed in 6 months, in 8 months, in 1 year. Now, if you go beyond the time that you are given, sometimes you lose part of the money. And that is why it is so important that when we get quote-unquote free money, meaning grant money that we don't have to pay back, there's not an interest rate to it, or we get concessionary rates, where, for example, from the IDB, and so you can get loans where you pay 0.75% interest per annum, less than 1%. I mean, these things are almost unreal. You have to use, that's why I say they're project specific and time specific.
But in saying that as well, we also need to make mention the fact that these monies can be moved around on the capital side of the budget as well once permission is given to do so.
Yes.
Because I know the people listening, the first thing they can say, well, if it's project specific and time specific, how were they able to use these capital monies to
with
pay
permission
back
and situations, right?
So there are situations and permissions that are granted in which you can move it and use it.
That is why when government said, look, we had been able to get some savings due to COVID-19.
Right.
Because certain projects that had to be undertaken by a specific time, we were unable to because we were on lockdown, we were on, well, not go slow, but what we call it now, curfew, and, you know, because of the protocols, you could not assemble and so many things. Now you can make an application to your source of income, the bank, the organization, the group, and say, hey, we had this project for $5 million and had to be completed at a specific time. We could not even start due to these circumstances, which are not self-inflicted circumstances, so to speak. We did not create COVID, We did not cause COVID to happen. We are not, as a people and a country, responsible for having to go on lockdown and having to follow all of these protocols due to COVID. And sometimes the organization says, well, that's a fact. And you say, well, look, we'd like to move that money to another capital project that is necessary and vital that we do.
Right. And also it's important to note that generally, when grants and loans and so on are given, the condition of not using it for recurrent expenditure is always there. Because recurrent expenditure, as you say, is something that comes every single month. So it would mean now, if you are approving a loan that is going to cover recurrent expenditure, that loan would have to be a recurrent loan as well, because it would have to cover that whatever it is, whether it's salaries and wages and pensions, it would have to do that every single month like clockwork.
Any good manager of any business entity, and government is operated as a business entity, that tells you you have to take a loan to meet your recurrent expenditure is a manager that you must fire instantly.
Absolutely.
And make a recommendation that they never get a managerial job
position again.
Because, simply put, if you run a little bakery, and let's use that as an example, and you cannot meet the business that you operate, the level at which you run, the sales that you generate, cannot allow you to pay you 2 or 3 members of staff in the bakery, repurchase raw materials to continue to make bread, pay your other utility bills like your water, your telephone, your electricity, and continue to survive without having to take a loan, then you know your business is bad. You need to either close down, restructure, or get into another kind of business. Right? Now, if you have to, at the end of every month, go to the credit union, go to Accel Finance or whoever, to borrow $1,000 or $5,000 to make sure that you pay your workers and you continue to purchase the material to continue making bread. Then you have another expenditure on your hand, which is a loan that you now take, which you have to repay X amount every month plus interest. And you will soon find 2 things. One, you won't be able to pay and meet all of those demands, including paying for the loan. But secondly, the institutions that borrow you will say to you that you are no longer credit worthy because you are not generating sufficient income. So it is never advisable, and it spells bad business once you have to borrow for recurrent purposes. Once you have to get a loan or a grant to pay wages and salaries, then you are in trouble. And we saw the example with a previous administration,
2008 to 2013.
2008 to 2013, sorry. Thanks for the correction. When at the end of the month, they had to find some form of asset. No, they couldn't get a loan because no financial institution would want to give you any money
if you're not managing
to pay recurrent expenditure, to pay wages and salary. Now you sell an asset. Now take the bakery for example. You're not getting loan now, so this month you have to sell the mixer in order to pay the salary. That's a piece of asset. The next month you may have to sell the oven to pay the salary. Now, as you continue to sell asset, what does it do? It depletes the business.
Resource.
So your resources, and then you have nothing. So the bakery, in truth and in fact, it no longer exists.
And that's what happened. That's generally, I mean, that's the best way I've ever heard it put. But you're actually correct. And as someone is saying here on the live, liability exceeds assets equals failure. Of course, because if you have to, and let's just put it in simple terms for let's say a housewife at home who is managing and budgeting her money, and she has at the end of the month, let's say she has to pay courts. right? At the end of the month, she has to pay courts, let's say $500, and she's only bringing in $1,000. Now, out of that $1,000, she has to pay courts $5. But then she go and she gets a little, she increase, she get a loan with one of the facilities. So she has to pay a little $300 there, you know. So now she has less money because she has to pay her bills, buy food, and do all of these things. So she's thinking now, well, I must pay courts. And like, if I don't pay courts, they will come back and take my little sewing machine, and my little sewing machine as well as make a little extra income with. No, she has. No. If
she's paying for a sewing machine and you introduce something there and she does make a little extra, that sewing machine, that debt she went into for the sewing machine, should be able, and that's why you have to calculate beforehand that what you're going to make on a monthly basis from that sewing machine must be able to pay for the sewing machine and allow you to have something in your hand. Now, if you have to dip into your salary
to get that,
to pay for that, then you're in bad business. And then the problem that we get into, which is what some people is advising and saying, well, you know, if government could have get the money to do this and do that, why they can't get it to pay the 4%? The problem that you run into, you say, okay, well, let me go to fast cash and forgive me. I don't know if I have the authority to call these people names. Let's just say a lending institution. Because I call names because people can associate with them. But let me not use any names because probably it is not legally the correct thing to do. You go to a lending institution and you say, boy, I'm in trouble this month. They have a way of giving you a little money quick. So let me go take a $500 too, so I can make sure codes get paid, light pay, water pay. But here's what. Come the following month, you still have to pay courts because that is a thing that you have to do on a monthly basis until you're finished. You still have to pay NAWASA and pay for water supply, pay for electricity services, pay for your telephone service and your. But
then you also have to pay back what you've borrowed.
But that's what I'm telling you. So now, come the next month. So you borrowed 500 to meet some of this recurrent, as we're saying, recurrent expenditure, because every month, as long as you're using electricity, in fact, even if you don't use water for 1 month, you still have to pay because there's a charge monthly for the meter. Yes? I don't know if that happens with electricity, if there's a basic charge, even if you don't use it.
But we pay sewage tax.
No. Environmental.
Well,
not sewage.
Sewage
for garbage and
environmental tax.
So that comes anyway, you know, and all of those things. So there you are. You're saying, look, but this month I run into a little trouble. Because for different reasons, because last month you paid half the bill because it was Christmas and you wanted to buy a ham and you wanted to buy 2 cases of drinks and you wanted to buy a shoe for the child, but you were getting the same money, and that's why budgeting is so important. And that is why we have to give credit to our government for very early, since last year, calling in the union and saying, hey, look, based on our outlook, based on our focus forward, and this is what every family has to do. Not only think about what your expenditures are and what you have to do the day you get the money. You must know long before. You must prepare long before. You must know what you can and cannot do. And hence the reason when the children come and say, look, I see my friend have an iPad, I need one too. Don't just give them and put yourself into trouble so at the end of the month you can't pay for it. But you have to sit down with you and explain, look, this is what we make. I make X, your father make Y. You put it together, we get XY here. But from XY, we pay A, we pay B, we pay C, we pay D, we pay E. Then you see we left with nothing. So while I believe, yes, you need an iPad, we cannot get it currently. So here is what. Mr. John down the road often says he wants someone on a Friday evening to sweep and clean up around his yard. He's going to give $10. If you are willing, let me speak with Mr. John. You can go do that for him. If I have the time, I will help you. We will put that $10 together, and over 6 months, 3 months, you can get your iPad. Yes? But no, we sometimes want to satisfy the desires because we want instant gratification sometimes.
But also, Mr. Bolan, I want to just pause you there for a moment. Also, you have to think about the costs that come with it. So he gets the iPad now. All of a sudden, you have to get internet. All of a sudden, the electricity bill goes up because it has to be charged. And all of these things have to be taken into consideration.
So you have to count all of that. And so because we want instant gratification, so there you have it as a politician. And those who are making some of those statements, like I say, I believe some people know better. But it suits them and their cause to say government must find the money to pay now.
Yeah.
And I am in no way, with all that I've been saying all morning, saying that the public servants doesn't deserve. I'm not saying that.
This is not
and I am not ever going to say that.
Yeah.
Right? They do deserve. But the situation, the present situation that exists, says, look, if we go ahead, and maybe government might find the monies to pay January, pay February, pay March, but the focus down the road is that we are going to come to the point where we cannot continue. Because, mind you, that increase, 4% increase across the board, which includes pensioners, which also, as you made the point that I was making about the iPad, when you do, it brings up other costs, you know. Because as you increase the monthly income for the public servants, you also increase the NIS contribution. So it is not just saying, well, 500 public servants, so they get the increase. 200 pensioners, they get the increase. But the NIS, because as your wages and salary goes up, your NIS calculation goes up. So it will bring an annual cost of over $13 million to what government is presently paying for wages, salaries, pension, and NIS.
Let's make it a little bit more relatable, Mr. Bola. It's basically saying to the people, because I know it's not everyone that has that same mindset that, okay, well, just pay us, you know, and vex with us. I've seen the comment, pay me and vex with me. It is not just about saying pay me and vex with me, because as you said, they can find the monies to pay January, February, and March.
No, I didn't say they can. I said they may be able. No.
Be able to find the money January, February, and March. But guess what? As a public servant, you need to be looking at your neighbor and say, you know, willing to sacrifice it for April, June, and April, May, and June. Because that is what it may come to.
Yes.
When you have a situation where government can meet 3 months and now needs to find a way to continue paying those who have been paid before. Now you may think about retrenching workers.
Well, you jumped the gun, because that's where I was heading when I said government may be able. But when you get stuck, it means that you have to take drastic measures. Because if we go back to the scenario of the bakery, if you sell, you may have to start selling assets, or you may have to restructure. Now remember, I didn't say that then, but I'm saying it now.
Yeah.
So you may have to say, well, all right, either I drop a worker, so it makes my monthly payment less.
Yes.
Or we may have to cut the salaries that we've been getting, so the monthly payment less. Or we may have to work longer hours to increase productivity.
Yeah.
Right? And look for more sales.
Yeah.
Or we may have to cut the bread we were making a little smaller, so the consumer lose, and then the consumer realize, but wait now, that dollar bread start looking like a 50 cents bread, so they stop buying. So in any way, you start losing. So I mean, I'm making all this point because I want the people who sometimes without a proper thought process and who are quick sometimes to just listen to all the loud mouthers and feel that this government is so wicked and they don't care about the public servants and want to make all kind of demands, to look at the thing chronologically and recognize that, hey, if X must come to me, would it affect Y? Would it affect Z? Yeah. What does it mean down the road? Do I now may have to settle for some kind of structural adjustment down the road? Because we go back into the days again when our expenditure at the end of every month far exceeds our income. And that's what government is saying. Look, what we focus. And then I hear some people say, well, government project to have a 6% economic growth. But remember, there was how much? 12%.
Yeah.
There was a 12% drop in 2020.
Yeah.
We regress. So even if you grow by 6% this year, it means that you still do not have. You have positive growth, but not positive growth in some way, because you have to offset.
Yeah.
It's like we're doing a 400-meter race, okay? But Because last time, I did not finish my 400 meter. I did 3. They say, well, all right, to run the same again,
you have to add the extra
we have to add that one you didn't finish. So instead of you starting here where everybody else started, you had to go 100 meter back. Yeah? So we're starting off at the same time, you know. But I'm already 100 meter behind. So because there was negative growth, because there was a reduction last year, it means that we're starting behind.
Yeah.
You're at the bottom of the hole. So 6% will only bring you halfway up the hole.
Yeah. For those who did the number line in school, they'd understand. You go from negative, you have to go -1, -3, -2, -1, then you start at
then
0.
you go to 0.
And then
you start
growth.
positive. Right? So you're starting from a negative position.
Yes, you start from a negative position.
And so all of those things must be considered. And then there may be those who say, well, that is not my problem.
But it
that is why you're in government, for you to think. And that is why the government has gone to the union very early and said, look, let's start looking at this thing. We want you now to approach your members and tell them, look, let's defer. We're asking for a deferral. We're asking to bring it to a later date when we, as government, knows exactly we are at the point where we can pay it, but more than that, we can sustain it.
Absolutely.
We can be able to do it month by month without sacrificing the job of anyone else, without sacrificing the fact that we may pay some people 2 days before month end, and then we have to wait until we get a little something again and pay a next set on month end, and then pay a next set 2 days after month end, and some 5 days after month end. We don't want that situation. We want a situation where we are able, on a monthly basis, to meet the demands of the people, and so we have to prepare for it, and that's what government is asking.
Absolutely, and you have to look at the trickle-down effect as well, because let's say, for example, my husband and I both are public servants, working public servants, and there comes an instance where there is retrenchment, and one or the other of us have to be retrenched.
Or even if both of you happen
us
to fall in the retrenchment.
No, that means that all the noise that we made for the little 4% increase is now gone down the drain because we were sacrificed for somebody else. It's basically what it is, you know. It's sacrifice. Yeah. So you, as a public servant, when you make the statement, and I'm not saying, and we have to continue to repeat this because people, as soon as you start talking money, people start getting emotional.
Yeah.
It is not an argument as to whether they deserve it or whether they should get it or not. They're not saying that they're never going to get it. It's just a deferral to a later date.
And of course they will get it, and they have to get it because it's something negotiated and agreed and signed for.
Absolutely.
But let's, as you made that point, let's go back a little bit. A couple of years ago, when negotiations was held, in fact, when after 2013, we came out of a period where there was negative growth, but there was a one-off payment, and so, and then we went into the structural adjustment. There was some wage freeze for a little while. After the structural adjustment was over, I think 2017, and because of the movement, government said, well, look, you didn't get increase for so long, but now we are over, and we are seeing a bit of light at the end of the tunnel. There were 2 one-off payments that was given to public.
What do they call it? A gratuitous?
A gratuitous payment.
Right.
So it was not like a salary increase, but for the sacrifices that you made, we have gone through it together. But we say now, based on what we have, there was a lot of arguments. Some people wanted 2,000, wanted 5,000, who said all kind of things. There was some negotiations. But I think overall, from the 2 payments, some people got up to about 2,000, some 1,000, 5,000, 7,000, based on your rate and where you were working, however they calculated it. But it was just a gratuitous payment saying thank you then for making the sacrifice. And then you started with salary negotiations. And the negotiations came where at the beginning of every year, there was a 3%, I think 2018, 3%, 2019, 4%, 2020, thereabout. 2021 is supposed to be a 4%, and then there's another agreed 4% for 2022. And government so far has been keeping up to that. When government came in, remember the previous administration, before 2013, the NDC, did a salary negotiation, and there was supposed to be, I think, a 4% increase that took effect 2 months, I think, after the government came in February and was supposed to take effect in March. That was honored. There was a back pay for all the years under the NDC when they never got a salary increase. Over $40-something million. Government went to the unions again and said, look, we acknowledge and we will pay. We ain't scratching the ground and say, well, oh, wasn't this government, whatever. It's a government commitment and we have to honor it. However, the government, based on the present economic situation, is not in a position to pay it all in a one-off. So let's get to an agreement where we'll pay it in stages. I think within 3 different tranches, over $45 million was paid out in back pay. That's after the 2013 election. So I'm saying all that to say that there is precedent of where when this government makes an agreement, makes an arrangement, even when they don't make it, but it is an agreement with government, it is being honored. Yes? So when the government say, look, it is not a possibility at this time, or we'll run ourselves into trouble. And as a result of handling it that way, but the point I want to drive home is, during the salary renegotiations, there were some ridiculous kind of numbers that came up, percentages of 7 and 8 and 10% and so. And there were some people who were saying, well, look, you say the economy is doing good, that you're doing well and you're having surpluses, pay us more. And government had to say, look, let us temper the rate we go. Look where we came from. We are doing better now. But if we are not careful, we can easily find ourselves back into that hole where we continue to struggle for survival, where we have to fight for air, where we have to be climbing on each other's shoulder. As it is now, we are walking, we are progressing. Let's take it slowly, step by step. Had it not been for government prudence in the management of the economy, look at what happened since February of 2020. There were months when public servants did not work, and I'm not saying that to say it was only public servants. There was a lot of other people who didn't. But they were able month by month to continue getting their salaries, wages, and pension on time. But not only that, government even was able to give some other people who were not directly employed by government some little assistance. Plus, look at how much more $1 million had to be spent in healthcare, which still needs money, which still needs to be improved. Our roads still need to be worked on. So the point I'm making is that this government has consistently shown that they need to manage this thing proper for it to get better. So let us not just become very, very emotional. And I know what money can do and what are the needs. And then some people bring in the thing about, the politicians getting richer and the workers getting poorer. Well, I spent 3 terms in government. And from the day I went into government, we keep talking about an increase for ministers. Yes? And I think there was either one occasion or possibly 2, if I'm not mistaken, when the increases that was given to the public servants, they adjusted the minister's salary likewise. So if the public servants got 2% or 3% or 4%, the ministers got that as well. And then it was the unions or somebody who raised it and said, but look, we are not negotiating for politicians. And so that was cut off. And a study was done, and a comparison was made, and the Grenadian politicians and ministers throughout the region are getting the lowest paid salary. And in some instances, we are almost 30 and 40% less than some of the other islands. And up till this day, an increase has not been given. It was promised. So sometimes I also hear people talk, and sometimes we talk without any fair information. Oh, well, if that is the case, why don't they cut the minister's pay? Well, what? No, so then now you want to give them nothing? Not me, I'm not there anymore, and but I feel it from my colleagues and my comrades, right? And all of that, I want to clarify, is not being put on the table and said this morning because we feel that the public servants don't deserve. They deserve. They deserve, yeah. And if the country can afford it and the situation gets better, they probably deserve to get even more than what they're getting. But some of them, because there are some who work extremely hard, go beyond the call of duty, will sit during lunchtime, will ensure that everyone who comes into an office is being attended to in the best and most hospitable way. While there are others who just sit and slam the door on people and turn their back and do nothing for an entire day. They get to work late, then they go to the washroom, they clean their nails, they do every other thing instead of doing what is necessary to get the country progressing and moving forward.
And I want to bring into the light the last time that the Honorable Minister Oliver Joseph was here, he did allude to the fact that the government spends 26.
We said we were going to take calls, yeah?
Yeah, we will. $26.2 million in salaries, wages, and pensions on a monthly basis.
Yes.
And I want to put that, I'm not sure if the figure still remains the same, but I want to put that out there in the public for you to understand that this is the amount of money that government has to find at the end of every month. Well, not the end of every month, but to pay on a monthly basis just for salaries, wages, and pensions. We have a call on the line. Oh, we seem to have lost that caller, so don't worry, they'll call back. But I just want to put that out there so people may feel, okay, well, they just have to find a little money to pay the people. It's $26 million.
And then with the increases that we're talking about from January of this month, it means that you're adding another 1 point something million every month to that. So it goes up to close to 28 million or so, or probably a little. But it might have increased too, because another thing that you have, which was almost disbanded during the period of the NDC, but was renegotiated and came back. There is something called increments. Increments, and the people who are not public servants may not understand fully well what an increment is.
But before you go into what it is, let's take this call because this person has been very patient. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Ms. Duncan.
Hi, good morning.
You ain't lost me at all. Don't worry, you ain't lost me. Good morning to you, Mr. Bola.
Good morning to you, sir.
Okay. I want to, you're on a very interesting topic that pissed me off last night because Mr. Roberts, Ray Roberts' issue, I think I was looking at Mikey Live, was that the government was able to buy back its shares from Grenada. And he is saying, based on what I get from the thing, because the government was able to repurchase the shares, which means that automatically the government has money to pay the public servant. And I mean, I can't help him. I mean, he can't think otherwise. The party can't think otherwise. So I had to forgive him for that, but it does not mean so. I think they are upset because remember, it was also Mr. Bowen, I believe, who had to spend his own personal money to have this case going when they had some kind of issue. When
wasn't this one?
Litigation?
Wasn't this one? It was another litigation with Grindberg in relation to the oil. Wasn't the WRB case he had to spend his own money on?
Okay, right.
It was the Grindberg one so that we could get back the rights to be able to explore oil and gas. The NDC was in government at the time and decided that they were not going to have representation in the case. When Grindberg sued Grenada for a couple of billions of dollars, I can't even remember the amount. But a lot, 4 or 5 times what we budget every year is what he was suing for. And the government decided they're not going to represent Grenada and Minister Bowen, along with the present Prime Minister. We were in opposition at the time, so I remember clearly. Had to get friends and others.
Thanks for the clarification.
But
but Mr. Ray Roberts has an issue because the government was able to repurchase the shares from WRB. That is his problem. So don't let that worry us as Canadians. And by the way, Mr. Bola, if you have a stapler, just staple that flag over your head for me, please. I don't want it to fall down.
Don't worry, it's flying.
I can't allow the flag to fall down.
And you know, I never noticed, but thanks for it. We'll make sure that we do as soon as the program is over. And it was there, but the pin just went loose.
The pin went loose?
Yes. I don't know why.
Don't bother. He'd probably brush it and take it out.
I believe you, Ms. Duncan.
Yeah, I know you would believe her. But let me just make a point on what you're saying there, and I didn't want to get into that, the whole repurchase of the WRB shares and so, because we're going to get to that at some point in time. We will have the discussion on that.
Yeah.
They fully well understand, and I made that at that point at the beginning of the program. But here's what, sometimes people say what they want to say because it achieves for them, or it gives them an opportunity to achieve their goal. They fully understand that the repurchasing of the shares from WRB is more than just government wanting to buy shares. It is about growth and development for our country. It is about getting greater and more grants from the GCF and places like Arena and other things. Because remember, Grenada as a signatory to the COP thing for the reduction in the emission of greenhouse gases. And 70% of the greenhouse gases that Grenada emits comes from our vehicles and Grenlec from the generation of energy. Now, we have made a commitment that by 2030, we hope to cut that emission by about 40%. Now, Grenlec was not prepared to move into renewables. Yes?
Yes.
Now, not Grenlec. We had to say WRB. Yes, who was in control. They had 61.6% of the shares. Now, government now having the shares and hoping that within time that local people will be able to purchase those shares, are going to aggressively move into renewables. The issue of generation of energy becoming cheaper will have a reflection in people paying less now, because we are among the highest in the world in terms of what we pay per unit for electricity. So that is going to drop, and people are going to benefit. The Grenadian people are going to benefit, and that's why it's hurting them so much. This is a national asset that can create national security. Why are we so mad that we were able to get it back under our control, in our hands? It is because of the benefits that will come to the poor people, and with benefits coming to the poor people as a result of a decision taken by the new National Party, is going to give stronger political grip to the new National Party, and they do not want that.
But,
so they're going to use everything they can before you come in to try to create confusion and to make people believe that the government doesn't love them. No, we stand to get billions of dollars in grant as a result of that. We have already received $123 million from the GCF for our water project, that Nawasa is now able to build new dams and replace a lot of the old lines. Grant money. There's a project that is under consideration for over $300 million for creating and making St. George's Town the first climate smart city in the region. And there's so much work to do around St. George's. Look, the Carnage. That whole road going around the Carnage could give up on us anytime, because the water is already undermining it. Through this funding, when you bring it into EC, will be over 700 million EC dollars. It's going to redo all of that. They're going to be backwards. We know, based on the studies done from the climate experts, that the rise in sea levels, if there's a 2-meter rise in sea level within now and any time, St. George's Town is gone, our airport is gone, all of that. So, but we won't be able to access those monies if we do not make the commitment and show that we are cutting our greenhouse gas emissions. So it is not just about buying the shares. And we won't go into that and the details later on. I didn't want to touch that though, but I just give you that little piece because you raised it.
Well, we don't expect the party of regression to advocate for progression. We don't expect that.
Yes.
They love regression, and that's why anything positive, they would try and counter it. And as you mentioned, the Carnage, I want the Grenadian public to know that there was plans in place for a company that was here, a Dutch company called Volker Stevens, to develop that whole Carnage area.
Yep.
And also the Lagoon Road, and there was supposed to be cottages and stuff.
Yep.
But
and
at
there was
that
supposed
time,
to be something called a ring road.
That comes around below the hospital.
Below the hospital, of course, yes, to ease the traffic off.
There also was to be reclaiming of the thing of the land from the fish market going up to Cherry Hill.
Yeah, well, there's plans for that too, yes, to continue to expand that area there.
But when the National Democratic Congress won the election, that was suspended. But you don't hear they talking about it.
No, they won't.
They will never talk about it. And they think that we have, well, you can't say fall brain because you could chase a fall, nobody coming right back where you was. So fall have a bit of sense. You understand? You just run a fall and you're coming right back there because you know you have something there to eat.
Right.
So they just trying to fool us. But, I mean, they might be able to persuade a certain portion of the population, but not everybody, and not people like me, because I study and I love politics. If I was not in the construction, I don't know, maybe I might follow up, maybe I might be a politician.
Well, welcome home, brother. Welcome home. There's always room in the house for people like you.
But the thing is now, if I cannot be a politician because the construction is in my blood.
No, I ain't tell you to give up construction.
Myself.
I'm just welcoming you into the house.
You welcome me into the house? Yeah. But you cannot welcome me into my own house. And you can welcome me into my house.
What do you mean I can't welcome you into your house? You've been away from your house for so long. You come and meet me, sit down there, so I can't welcome you?
You win already.
Thank you.
Yes. So anyhow, have a good day. Ms. Duncan, have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you for your contribution, brother.
You know something, Mr. Bola? You said something that was, the caller said something that was so important. You know what, and it's a strategy, and apparently it's a very effective strategy that the NDC and other opposition forces are using. You know, you go to get a Zugu, as we locally call it, an injection. As a young child, they would give you something that you like, just so that you don't remember the pains of the past. So, because we have consumed ourselves so much with love of propaganda, they keep feeding us with all of these useless propaganda stories just so we wouldn't remember the mess of things that they've made in the past, you know.
Yeah.
So we have to be very careful of this strategy. We have another caller on the line. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Miss Duncan and Senator Roland Bola.
How are you, my dear? Good morning to you.
Fine. And happy New Year, my first call for the new year. And I wish success and prosperity and so on, you know. We achieved that in this 2021. As we all know, we're still under the threat of the pandemic.
Yes.
And when you look worldwide, we see what's taking place. But must compliment our frontline workers and our health team and the administration and all of us who are making that tremendous sacrifice in trying to save lives and livelihood. Yeah. So let's be safe. Mr. Bola, I just want to say that I'm very happy to hear what I'm hearing there on the program and the explanation. You know, you're doing well, especially when you explain about what is current expenditure, part of the budget, you know, looking at the budget, what part of recurrent expenditure and what is capital expenditure. And I think this is something that we have to continue educating our people on and not to be, you know, sidetracked by those propagandists, those haters of Grenada, you have to see, because the repurchasing of Grenada, I see that. I'm very happy that is back into the hands of Grenadians. I wouldn't say much more on that, but I just want to applaud the government and where we are today, because since 1994, Mr. Bola, I was in that Parliament building. I was in Parliament on that day when our Prime Minister was in the opposition and was calling out and speaking against the conditions that Grenada, how it was sold. And they didn't take him on. But I could say today he's a fortune teller. And I must compliment them. Him, Mr. Oliver, Minister Bowen, who were negotiating and so on, and all of us, including you and everyone who doing that fantastic job. But I just want to also say, Mr. Bola, that we saw how the Dr. Mitchell and Mr. Bowen, the NMP administration at that time, the first one. How they moved, he was Minister of Communications and Works, and Mr. Bowen was the manager of Grand Lake. And you see how they move, talking about the rural electrification program, you see how it was moved from the 45% to 95%. And I must say that, how before the sale, what was the status, the electrification program. And I know that confidence, that trust, how it was done. I know moving the renewables, I think it's this new thing with the liberalization and getting the renewables on board. I know moving from 1% as it stands now to 45%. And I know the track record of this government in moving things for the future. I know that we're in safe hands. So, Mr. Bola, I just want to tell our people that tomorrow is Parliament. That's at 9. Tune into your radio, your TV, and get the information. Get it live and direct for yourself. So you won't be fooled by those propagandists who are putting out all kind of things out there and trying to distort and confuse minds. But let us stand tall for our party and government and our people. Grenada, let's move on as we are about to celebrate our independence again. Let us be speaking out and talking out for our country. You all have a wonderful day. May God bless you.
As well.
Thank you very much. Have a good day, and we appreciate your contribution.
All right, and guys, the lines are open. The number to call is 440-7377 if you're calling locally. If you are in the diaspora and you want to give us a call, the number to call is 347-329-3101. We have a caller on the line. Hello, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Duncan. Good morning, Mr. Bulla.
Good morning, sir. Good
How
morning.
are everything?
Very well.
Yeah. Mr. Bulla, I started there listening to the program. And one year came back in my mind, the two governments, NMP and NDC.
Mm-hmm.
And look at the track record. In 2008 to 2013, the people of Grenada Carriacou people elect NDC to go to run the affairs of the country. And look at what they did. They have a government that was operating under a deficit of $80 million every month. $80 million. What kind of management team is that? How, like you have a business and you put a man to manage your business. And every month, that man coming back to you as the owner and say, Mr. Bola, I shot $80 million.
Yes.
So I spend $80 million. But what I make $8 million, which is $10 million shot.
Mm-hmm.
Would you keep that person to manage your place forever? Wouldn't you fire that person?
You have to.
So in 2008, 2013, the Grenada people they saw that government there was not doing a good job, and they fired them. And they elected government that is managing the affairs of the country properly. We have a surplus. I have a team that the see green and they love people, and they doing what is good and what is right. They might know what is popular, but what is right for the people of Greater Carriacou and Peter Martinique. I want to say to the Grenadian people, when you're taking about care, look at what's going on. Because of a good leader and a good government in place, what happened during the coronavirus match? Did the government send home anybody? No. I remember in Barbados, both when they returned, mother, father, and son, all of them returned. They were sent home. But what the government did, they keep them, and they still continue to pay. Even if someone was home and not working, and still receiving the full salary every month. Because the government prepare for the dry season. And when you don't prepare for it, like you know, so that you may have money and you just scandalize it, and then you don't prepare for the dry season. And when difficult times come upon you, you have nothing. You have nothing. You become penniless. Penniless. So I want to say to the Grenadian people, this government is a government of care, right? And they do everything to better your living condition. And when you hear people in the opposition talking about care, I cannot say, I love to talk about care, but what they practice? They practice they practice not on carrying. Because when you have an entity like Grand Lake, and you sold Grand Lake for $15 million, right? And after that $15 million, you still give back the company 10. They come like you sold it for, you give a company 5, so you come like you sell it for $10 million. $10 million. And now the government now has come back and buy it for about $60-something million. And now you call it and tell them, say, what the government okay? Because every month people complain about the cost of electricity. And I always say, see, some people have the tendency, Mr. Bola and Ms. Duncan. Right? If you price high, you make much more money than a man who prices lower. Because I want to say to two people, like if you have 10 customers and the price high, every month that tells the customer you have to come back. But if you drop your price, more people who do not have electricity at home, right, will become customers to your business. So you get about a whole 200 more people to be customers because of the price drop. What happened with the telephone company? Remember what happened to it? The telephone company will liberalize.
Yeah.
And the price go down. You see, competition make people do things that they don't want to do. Right? So now the government do something to ease the pressure on the greater people. Now the opposition force crying that the government don't care. What I always say, the people of Greater Carriacou, who knows who care about them, who cares and who love them, and who seeking in the interest of them. And the MP government seeking the interest of them to help better the living condition of the people of Greater Carriacou. So, Mr. Bola and Ms. Duncan, you all have a wonderful day. God bless you.
All right, you as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your contribution.
Absolutely. So there's a lot to consider, and there are people who are out there saying, "Oh well, I don't care." We should care because this situation is not isolated, and I keep telling people that when you deal with issues of government, nothing is isolated. Something always affects the other, so you may not be a public servant currently, but you have a family member that is a public servant. Now, if that family member were to ever for any reason get retrenched as a result of bad management, they will have to depend on you. It becomes your burden now. So you may not be directly affected now, but who is not to say that you would not be directly affected if something were to happen? So we always have to take these things into consideration and look at the situation holistically, and not just find pieces of something that we agree with, but look at the whole situation and think about what is best for our country, what's best for our economy. There will come a time, as we made it through 2008 to 2013, we'll make it through 2020, 2021, and however long COVID lasts, and we will come out of this stronger. Because one thing that happens in these situations is that we always devise methods, policies, protocols, mechanisms that we can use in other difficult times. We have another caller on the line. Good morning, Mr. Mills.
How you know it's me? What's the detective one?
We don't see you. Good morning, sir.
So where I'm sitting right now?
On your chair in your bottom.
Well, yes, you get one correct.
How are you, sir?
Not too bad on you.
Very good for today.
Having a sad problem.
Oh, no.
Do you think we can help?
No.
Oh.
I have my aunt in England, she passed away.
Oh, well, accept our sympathy.
Thank you.
Our empathy goes with you. And when did you get the news?
Yesterday.
Oh. Was it COVID related or because of age or something
COVID.
else? Okay.
So I didn't get no reason why, but
it's not COVID.
But I know definitely it's not COVID.
Well,
Okay.
things like that are oftentimes sad, but you know what? The only thing we can do is comfort ourselves with the good memories we have of them.
That's right. It's my father's sister.
Okay. Well, you might be a little bit sad, but here is what. While sadness and grief is in your heart because your aunt is gone, you still have to be celebrative in another part of your heart because you still have life and, you know,
Exactly.
yeah, you continue to struggle on to make it better.
As the old people say, the Lord does give it and He take it.
And He take it, certainly, yeah. But our prayers will be with you, will be in our thoughts. We will continue to ask God to give you the strength to carry through and to make it to another day.
Yeah, Brother Bola.
We are grateful for having friends like you, Mr. Mills. So try and have a good day. I mean, think about...
Brother Bola, have a nice day.
Yeah, think about Auntie, but only think about the good things about her.
Yes. I
All
will
right.
do that.
Nice.
All right.
Take care, Brother Mills.
Yeah. And I want to as we're coming down on time to remind the general public, as the caller did, that the Parliament sitting would be tomorrow. All the information that you need to know
From
concerning
9, it is from 9
o'clock.
Yep.
That you need to know concerning Grenada and of course other matters of state will be discussed tomorrow in the Parliament building. So I urge you to tune in. You could tune in live. It's carried on social media. If you ain't tune in live, then you could always watch it after the fact. But it is important to watch it and make your own determination based on the information that you receive from the deliberations in Parliament. Make your own decision on what you think about the Grenada situation. Don't let anybody tell you what you should think. Don't let anybody fill your mind with propaganda because, you know, Grenadans sensational. We like sensationalism, so we go in with what the most interesting story is at the time.
Well, the best sounding.
The best sounding story. The one that gives us the best high.
High, yeah.
The best high.
It's like smoking a win. Which one better?
Which one better?
Red Bed Sensimilia?
I don't know.
You don't know them?
No.
Oh, you have red bed. You are compressed. Yeah.
I find you know a lot to do.
Well, you know, I move around a lot. Speak with a lot of people, engage many different people. You know, and
if that's a story you're sticking to, I can't doubt you.
But it is the true story.
Okay.
I speak nothing but the truth.
Okay.
There were times in my life when I had postponed the truth a little bit to another time, but I've
postponed the truth.
Yes, I've come to that place now where
I've never heard that.
I've recognized that, you know, the truth at the time is always the best.
Right. So we want to appeal to, because we're coming down on time, we may be able to take one more call. Somebody is saying, good morning, I hope the opposition leader shows up. We all hope so. And another individual is saying, good move by government to purchase Grenada. Who financiers in their right mind takes a loan to pay dividends?
And not just dividends, special dividends, they call it.
Special dividends.
Yes.
I don't want to miss anyone on social media, huh? Somebody is saying here, NDC spent 5 years in office and no one got a salary increase. They almost didn't get a salary too, eh? So not just a salary increase, they almost didn't get a salary.
They were out of office and some people didn't get a salary for the month. For that month, you know, the new government had to come in and
I think that's when we understood the real meaning of Coconius times.
Coconius. That's a word I didn't hear for a while, boy. When you say things coconius, I mean real dry, you know.
I think that's when we understood what the real meaning of coconius was.
Where you dig that word up from, girl? You know more than I thought.
I as you say, I move around a lot and I hear things.
Yeah. There's an old man from up my neck of the woods who used to be a police officer for a lot of years, you know, very, lively kind of guy. And sometimes when you meet him, one of the things he used to say, when you call him, he used to say, RPCJ. You know, RPCJ.
What does that mean?
River and Twine Pure Cane Juice. But the one that he really used to say, you talk about coconius, you say, but what you have? He said, no, boy, nothing today. He said, today a TB. TB, yes, man. I thoroughly broken to brick up. So I think that was a period when for the government they were TB.
Thoroughly broken to break up. But I just want to appeal to us as a people in this deliberation, and sometimes that's why. As a body, it's important to appoint good leaders. And I'm not speaking about government now. I'm speaking about the leadership of your unions, the leadership of whatever facility that you want to put them in charge of, that they make decisions that is best for you in the long term. We're not speaking about the now, what's happening now, how they feel about a now situation, but in the long term. So if they're telling you, no, we're not doing this deferral, we don't want it, say no to it, oppose it, then ask them, well, what would happen in the long term? If we were to get retrenched, how would you protect us? That is a question that needs to be asked, because that is the reality of the situation. You know, we're looking at what has happened in 2020. We are hoping that 2021 is better. We're hoping that we're able to do all of the things that we budgeted for, the projections that we've given in our budget. We're hoping we're able to meet those allocations, and we're able to expand our economy just a bit. We're hoping for that. But we never know, because we are still living in an era of COVID-19. So the unpredictability of the situation is very real. And we have to come to terms with that. And we have to understand that anything can happen at any moment that can just change the entire trajectory of the country. So we have to take all of that into consideration, and don't just see yourself in the now, because you may be glad to get the 4% in January, February, March, April, and May. And then June, July, and August, you're not looking for 4%, you're looking for a salary.
And for a job.
A job. And that's the reality. We're not trying to frighten anyone.
Absolutely.
But that is just the reality of the situation.
Possibility.
The possibility.
Of what can happen.
Of what can happen.
Yeah, because other things can happen too. There can be
as well.
salary cuts, after an increase.
Deductions and so on, yeah.
It may come to deduction because the government gets to the place where they no longer can meet the demands of a monthly income. It may call for the change of a government as well.
Yeah.
But who says bringing in another one is going to do anything better or fix the problem? But different things can arrive at that, and for some people they may like the fact that I say change of a government, because if they can push for that to happen, they see that as the means. That's the doorway in which they can get into government.
But if we've learned anything, we know that NDC don't good at paying salaries. So that would be the worst decision I think we've ever made in our history.
Well, who say it's going to be NDC that they're going to vote in? I mean, come on now. Anyway, we are winding down on time, and let's not get into that discussion now. So, friends, it was good having you. It was good listening to the reading some of the comments that was made on social media. This is a situation that could be very ticklish. It's money. People do need money. Although there's an author who said getting more money doesn't necessarily make sure that you have more money. Because as more money comes to you, if you don't have a plan and you don't understand what you need to do with it, you'd always find ways to use it and spend it. Yes? Yeah. And because we are getting by on what we have now. Albeit that some of us are struggling, we are struggling to get by with 4%, with 10%, with 14%, with 20%. Some of us will still be struggling. Because as we said, if you don't plan, if you don't prepare, if you don't forecast, if you don't look down the line, if you don't make prudent decisions, it doesn't matter how much you get.
Are we struggling or are we being forced to be better managers?
Well, I don't know that we are forced. We should from experience understand that in making resolutions, part of it must be how do we manage our lives and our life's resources. But a lot of times we don't look at that aspect. We talk about making resolutions, but the resolutions are cosmetic in most instances, because we talk about this year I want to lose weight, I want to eat less, and go to less parties, I want to drink less alcohol, those kind of things. But we don't always say, well, look, let me seriously look at what are my incomes, where the sources of incomes are, what can I do to strengthen them, how can I better secure the job that I have, what can I do now that may mean I can get a promotion,
Yeah.
and a promotion means an increase, not necessarily a salary increase negotiated for by the union, but because I'm up at a higher position,
Yeah.
it means that I'll get more. But some of these things, we sometimes don't look at it and see them as necessary and important. And like I say, and I've said before, planning for retirement. What do I do as of now? Because we should start planning our retirement, and what do we do at retirement time from the first day we start working, or even before we find a job. We need to put a plan in place. But these are all topics that I would hope our unions and so would want to come with the employers and bring the experts to talk about, what I know about those things, and not expert advice, but little things that I've learned along the way. But be that as it may, the issue of salary increase, whether or not you vote for having a deferral to a later date, or you say you want your money now, it's a choice that you must make. All we're trying to do is give you information, and we want to say to you that in coming up with that decision, in making that choice, do not be influenced by emotions. Do not just take what I say or what anybody say as gospel, but think, look deep within, do introspection, ask for information, calculate before you make a decision. And when you make one, make sure the decision that you make, you can abide with it, you can live by it, and you can accept the consequences, that it will bring. Whatever that decision may be, it is all up to you. But I dare say, from where I sit, from what I know, I believe that this government is genuine. I believe that they will make good on the promise as soon as they recognize that they can do that and continue to do all of the other things that they have to do for Grenada to continue to propel forward, to move forward, to become a better place where living becomes much better and easier, not just for those of us who are employed with the service, but for every single Grenadian man, woman, and child. It is Thursday. Please do have an enjoyable Thursday. I know some of you probably longing for a little back in time. Moonlight City always used to have a Thursday night rhyme, but it can't happen these days. We are still in curfew. The social gathering, we have to be small. I think the numbers have increased to about 20. But let's continue to follow the protocols. Let's do the best we can to manage this pandemic, so as it gets better, there'll be greater and greater easement, and we as a people will be able to get back to some of the normalcy of life that we knew before. Enjoy the rest of your day. Be safe, be secure, and follow the protocols. Thank you very much for your participation in the program.
All right, guys, we have come to the end of our program for today. And as we say here every day, in whatever you do and whatever you say, be safe and be secure. We always want to be talking with you, but we don't ever want to be talking about you. Please do enjoy the remainder of your day and stay tuned for the national report. Have a wonderful day, guys.
Stay up to date with all that's happening with the new National Party, NNP. Send us a message via text or WhatsApp on 405-8683.
Government through the Ministry of Education to assist family who lost their house to a fire on Tuesday. We'll have the details to this story and more in the National Report. Welcome back. With the details to the news for Wednesday, January 13th, 2021, I am Sherry-Ann Noel. A family of 4 is trying to pick up the pieces after their home in Busheshu Gardens was destroyed by fire on Tuesday night. When GIS visited the family on Wednesday, members of the RGPF's fire department were conducting investigations. Despite having received the call of the devastating news while on their way home, homeowner Martin Alexander managed to maintain a positive outlook.
We got a second call from another neighbor telling us that the house is on fire, and by the time we came, they already called the fire brigade. Nothing could have been done to save the house or anything like that. So, the fire truck came, they did the best they could, but the house was already engulfed in flames.
Alexander, who is a teacher at the Grenada Boys Secondary School and father of 2 school-aged children, says friends and family are providing accommodation and support at this time. However, his main focus is ensuring his children are organized for school.
Right now, the focus now is on getting my kids' stuff, their school books, their uniform and so forth back. Afterwards, we'll look at concentrating on what's going on with the house. We are insured, of course. Our insurer was here last night. She assured us that they would come and evaluate and so forth. Everything inside here can be replaced. We're looking at rebounding and probably building back and building better. My son is 10 years. My daughter is 15. My son attends St. Mary's Junior School. He is in grade 5. My daughter attends high school. She's in Form 4.
Thank you. If someone would like to reach out to you to lend support, a number or so?
Anybody wanting to assist can call me at 534-9640, or you can call me on my job, which is GBSS.
Education Minister Honorable Emmeline Pear also reached out to the Alexander family on Wednesday and pledged government support through the Ministry of Education. She told the GIS via a telephone interview that she understands the situation that the Alexander family has been thrown into, but at the same time she's very thankful that no lives were lost.
I spoke to Mr. Alexander this morning, and I had to commend him on how positive he was, about the entire situation, meaning that it has not allowed him to go into the negative mode. And, and I really, really want to commend him that he's looking at the situation from a positive point of view. And that is how to build back better and to be of great support to his family. That being said, I did offer to him that the ministry would provide whatever support that is needed at this time to help him through this situation. And we would continue to be in communication with him and his family. And again, my heart goes out to him, and in any way, both personally and professionally, that I can help, I stand ready to do that.
Martin also expressed gratitude to all those who have reached out to his family in their time of difficulty. Moving ahead, Health Minister Honorable Nicholas Steele says public consultations will be held before a final decision is made on which COVID-19 vaccine Grenada will purchase. The COVID-19 vaccine has been a topic of interest and discussion of late, as concerns are being raised on whether or not the vaccine is healthy or safe. Minister Steele told members of the media on Tuesday that no decision has been made on the vaccine for Grenada or the region. He says more knowledge has to be shared with the public to allay fears and suspicion currently being spread on social media.
I know that there are many people who have a certain level of anxiety with respect to this particular vaccine, which would have been many other people. Most of them would not have had or don't have that level of anxiety or so for all of the other vaccines, polio vaccine, rubella vaccine, mumps vaccine, all of the others that are implemented as part of our national policy here in Grenada. Even individuals who annually would take the flu vaccine or who would take hepatitis vaccine, etc. So we recognize that, and we know that this discussion has to be had, and we have started having that discussion in small circles, but a public discussion has to be had.
He says Grenada now has the ability to store the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine, which is among 3 vaccines so far approved by the World Health Organization.
We do have now confirmed ability to store said vaccine here in Grenada, as opposed to last week. We are able to store that vaccine, should that be the vaccine that as a CARICOM or as an individual country or as OECS we decide to go with. We are also in communication with Moderna, which is another vaccine that has received approval in the US, and also with AstraZeneca, which is a vaccine that has received approval in the UK and other European countries with respect to Pfizer, Moderna, and AstraZeneca. Those are the only three at this point in time, because those are the only three that have either received approval from WHO or are well on the way in the process of, so that it is safe and prudent for us to have discussions with these manufacturers, so that if and when there is that WHO PAHO approval, we are ready there to pull the order out and have it shipped.
This is the National Report. The news will continue after the break.
Protect yourself and our community from COVID-19. Wash your hands frequently with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. If soap and water are not available, use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer with at least 70% alcohol. Use a tissue when blowing your nose, sneezing, or coughing. Immediately discard the tissue properly and wash or sanitize your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Let's do our part to ensure that each and every Grenadian remains healthy. To stay up to date, visit the Government of Grenada's webpage or the Ministry of Health's Facebook page. For more information, contact the Ministry of Health's hotline by calling 53-VIRUS. This has been a public service announcement brought to you by the Ministry of Health.
Welcome back. The new laboratory, which is part of the second phase of the General Hospital, will be open to the public from the middle of February. Acting Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Hospital Services, Hannah Julian St. Paul, said staff and records from all the old lab will be transferred to the new facility. Prior to touring the facility on Wednesday, she told GIS the intention is to equip the lab for certification in accordance with the international health standards.
The second floor is catered for our new lab, and we are in the process of transiting from the old lab over into the new space, and we are looking at the middle of February for us to be moving over fully and for persons to be able to be accessing service at that new facility. At that new facility, you would, on your tour, you would see that we have all brand new equipment there. They are upgraded, top of the line, because right now we are going to be starting to look at certification for our lab, so that the equipment is in keeping with that.
Medical Director Dr. Taisha Donald is happy that healthcare in 2021 is off to a positive start. She is optimistic that the equipment will enhance the delivery of healthcare and services to Grenadians. Dr. Donald highlighted some of the equipment that will be used at the new facility, which includes nebulizers, portable X-ray units, new CT scanner, and carts.
The first thing we got was some new ICU beds. So we got some new ICU beds, like a total of 6 beds. We have procured new operating theater lights, because we've had, since the new building has been commissioned, it's been the same lights we've been using since. And now we're really happy that we've procured some new operating theater lights, which are already purchased. It's just awaiting arrival, and we're really happy about that. We did a lot of work with the ophthalmology unit. So this year, well, we're in 2021, so last year, the ophthalmology unit, they improved significantly in that they benefited quite a bit from some of the new equipment that was procured, including what we call A scans and B scans. They got new slit lamps, they got keratometers. So their department has upgraded, which means that they could now offer more services to their population. So with all the new equipment, it helps to improve services that we offer.
PS St. Paul gave the assurance that the equipment will be serviced regularly.
All of our equipment has come with a service contract. We have realized over the years that that was one of our weaknesses, that we was purchasing equipment and we had no routine servicing of them. So we have learned, and all of our equipment that we are purchasing going forward that needs to be serviced have a service contract, as well as we have our own biomedical team on compound that service our equipment from time to time, and if they can't, whatever they cannot do within their capacity or capability, we source expert help.
And finally, in the news, The Happy Hill Brizan Pre-Primary School and the Paradise Pre-Primary School, constructed under the 9th Basic Need Trust Fund, is set to be handed over to the Ministry of Education in the coming week. The Paradise Pre-Primary School was constructed at a cost of 1.7 million EC dollars, and the Happy Hill Brizan Pre-Primary School was constructed at a cost of 1.8 million EC dollars. GIS visited both locations on Wednesday and met workmen on the job sites cleaning and adding finishing touches to the structures. Via the telephone, Education Minister Honorable Emmeline Pear told the GIS that she is very pleased that the structures will be handed over soon and looks forward in particular to the merging of the Happy Hill and Brizan pre-primary schools at a more conducive learning environment.
I highly commend all the persons involved for the level of maturity, for looking at the bigger picture and the kind of cooperation that they gave to the Ministry of Education that we have gotten thus far. We believe that in a new environment, new facilities, new resources, that students and teachers will be far better off, and we will continue to provide all the necessary support to this new school as we attempt to give every child an opportunity to succeed. And again, I have to say this, I am so impressed thus far with the level of cooperation support that we have received from all of those involved in this process.
With the merger of the two institutions, the Education Minister says the right procedures will be followed if there is need to have a principal, since at present the institutions are led by what is known as a teacher in charge based on student numbers.
The situation would be determined by the guidelines for installation of a principal, and once the school meets the condition for that, we are going to follow the necessary guidelines. But in the meantime, we have been working with those involved, and as I said before, I am just amazed and impressed with the level of understanding, the level of cooperation, the willingness to put the children first, as opposed to all of those other things, titles and positions, and who is in charge and who is not in charge. But we will continue to look at the situation and do the best we can in that regard as to whether we have a principal or teacher in charge.
The Paradise Pre-Primary School, she says, is a project that has been on the books for many years. However, finances has always been an issue. To see the project come to completion is really a humbling feeling for all involved.
Moving to this new location, I believe will principal and head teacher and students and family members, everybody involved, would breathe a sigh of relief, particularly when we have bad weather. For those who do not know where that school is currently located, we can say on the river's bank in Paradise. And so this is very important for us in the Ministry of Education, a safer location where students can be accommodated and all involved can continue, with a peace of mind to continue to provide for the children of this community and other communities who would access this facility.
Contracts for both projects were awarded to Hanover Construction Company Limited, who are specialized in civil engineering, both infrastructural and building works. And with that story, come to the end of the National Report for Wednesday, January 13th, 2021. On behalf of the entire news and production team, I am Sherry and Noel, thanking you for viewing.
Stay up to date with all that's happening with the new national party, NNP. Send us a message via text or WhatsApp on 405-868.